Yeah.
I hope they're the same.
Harold, can you get the mic?
Okay, good evening, everyone. Let's see here.
Mr. Scruff, Ninja Turk.
Probably what there's a variance.
No, just kidding. Just on the side.
Okay, so we're going to review the project cost, where the bids came in, the budget cost comparison against the estimates, as well as two scenarios for the revised budget going forward, the alternative one that Dave mentioned and the recommended one, as well as several project schedules for each of those two alternates. So there were 7 bids received on April 9th. The low bid was $20.8 million. We're hoping for a base bid estimate of $19.8 million, and so this was $1 million over the budget. I'll get to that in a minute. The bids, though, we believe when you see, especially the ones in the $21 million range there, as well as the low bid who really wanted the project, I think it's very indicative of a close bidding environment, and it represents the true cost of this project. Probably the 6th and 7th bids were a little high. The low bid really wanted it, and his price reflects that. But if we were going to look at an average, I think we'd look more of those first 5 bids. The $21.5 million for really a true cost of this project going forward, now having had the advantage of receiving actual bids. 3 of these 7 bidders were from Lake County, and all of them were quality bidders that are typically bid CDB work, and one of them actually was the builder for the university center as well, and so they were all contractors that are interested in the area here, familiar with the area. And again, I think these prices reflect the true cost of the project. It's always good to see numbers so close together as you see in the middle pack there. So as we look at this cost estimate versus and bid comparison, the first grouping there are the CDB funds. Our base bid estimate, which was done in August of 2013. This was prior to going out for bid. CDB requires us to do, as Dave was mentioning earlier, cost estimates, very detailed cost estimates throughout the project, as well as one prior to releasing it for bids. We have to be approved to do that. And they always also account for a 10% contingency. And again, this was last August, so it was 8 months prior to actually receiving the bids on April 9th. And so you see our estimate was $21.7 million. The funds available from the CDB is $21.7, a little higher, so we were below the budget, just below the budget. But that low bid that you saw the apparent low base bid came in at $20.8 million. So just over $1 million over our estimate of 19.7. This is 5% over. And I have to tell you, we have a very good track record for our estimates. We're usually within 1 to 2% of our estimates on projects this size. So it's not easy for me to be in front of you reporting the results of this bid opening today. That being said, I have checked in several sources. I've also checked in with the CDB because I'm curious, where are most of their projects coming in this year? And it was indicated to me by the CDB that on an average their projects have been coming in at 5% over the architect's estimate. And so there must be some, I believe that there is some inflation and volatility that's happening in the marketplace that our cost consultant did not anticipate fully. So I think that's part of it. I've checked some other indexes as well. There is indeed inflation that is happening that wasn't anticipated, and even more that's anticipated as time goes on. So I think, all of what we enjoyed, what the construction industry enjoyed, say 5 years ago, when the economy was much different, is now in a state of change, and I believe that is reflected in this 5% number. So. But you heard David say earlier that it's 539,000 is really the overage, and what happens there? You see that construction contingency up at the top of 1.9 million. Well, that is a contingency that we must hold by CDB rules until we go out for bid and receive bids. But once the project goes into construction, the CDB will release some of those funds. They want to still hold on to a good part of it, but they'll release some of that to be used for the project. And so that's where you see contingency funds offered by CDB 3%. So of that 10%, the CDB is willing to just hold on to 7% as we go through construction. So if something happens, we do have a renovation portion to the project that is sizable. And that's why the CDB wanted to hold on to a 7% contingency and releasing 3%. And so that deficit of 1.163 million that you see there over the funds available, once you add the 3% contingency to that, the variance is the 539,000 figure that David mentioned earlier. But that's only one part of the budget. There's a construction budget, and then there's an FF&E budget. And this added to the issue, to the overage. The CDB, just as the CDB set this construction budget of 21.7 million CDB funds for construction, they also set a budget for FF&E. And this is a line item on the budget of $825,000. As some of you may know, this project is probably, since it was initiated, probably is going on 15 years. And I believe that this is a number that was established when it was just a classroom building here at Grays Lake, and a number that was established 15 years ago. It's been held over and carried through the budgets, and now when the project finally became reality, we have that number. Now the project is a science building project, and all that being said, this is something that we did not discover until late in the project, after the estimate for construction was established, and almost at the point where we were out for bid. And this is still an estimate. This has not been bid. the FF&E, and of course this is furniture, fixtures, and equipment, AV, technology, as well as furnishings. It has not been bid. It's still an estimate. As you know, it happens later in the project. However, the CDB does not manage the construction for this. They set the line item budget of $825,000, but they do not manage the construction. That's why it's bid. It's bid at a later date, but not through the CDB. But it is a budget number that we carry on all the CDB documentation. And it wasn't until February of this year that we first estimated the FF&E of $2.377 million for the FF&E. This number has since come down. But and this was the number that we knew at the time of bidding and into May, and when the decision was made to cancel the bids and rebid. So this was the number we knew. It wasn't until into June that we're now at a number that's about $500,000 less than that, about 1.85 is the number you'll see in a minute. So the FF&E variance or overage was $1.5 million, added to the construction cost overage that you saw on the previous page is the $2.1 million number that you heard mentioned. This was at the time of on April 9th when the bids were received. This is what we knew at that time.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
How did it happen that nobody knew, apparently, that we'd gone from just a classroom building to a science building with technology, so that the CDB was looking at giving us a significantly lower amount of dollars for a project that we weren't even doing anymore, when it should have been somehow alerted to the fact that the project had changed?
I'm not sure I can answer that, but that is my responsibility, and it should have been caught sooner. And to the point where we could have seen that, and it would have had us adjust the amount. Hopefully, the CDB would change the amounts and allow us to have a lesser amount for the construction cost, and allow more for the FF&E.
But now we can't change it.
We can.
I see. Okay.
We can change it. Yes. And you'll see the suggestions going forward. Any other questions?
Well, just in general, how do you make a bid? In general, how do you estimate a bid when you're going to talk about the whole next construction season? I mean, how do you accurately estimate a bid in August for something that is going to go out to bid the following season in April? I mean, you're going to know that there's going to be changes. So, I mean, I know you work with estimators, but how do you deal with that? And what do you factor in for, for this change? I mean, did you do all these things and then we still are off by this much? Is it just that construction has ratcheted up so much this year that nobody foresaw how much there was going to be?
Well, I think it's some of that. To answer your first question, our cost estimating consultant does apply what's called an escalation factor to they estimate all the materials and the labor and so on and so forth for everything that's designed into the building. But then at the end, they also add, considering the bid period. They usually go to the midpoint of the bid period, or the construction period, that is, I'm sorry. And whenever that is, they will add an escalation factor. I believe they used a 3%, Scott? 3% escalation factor?
They used two different escalation factors for the new addition because that was occurring earlier in the renovation. They range from 2 3/4 to almost 4% of escalation for the different parts. There was also a small amount of contingency that they had in their number as well, trying to again address the idea of unknowns and the volatility of the market.
But it underestimated.
And so I don't think they anticipated so far I've checked with a few different indexes, cost estimating indexes, not only our own cost consultant, but some others, and already for the first and second quarter this year, These indexes are tracking 5% and